Welcome to FNF Victory Road Draft League Season 2 Team Analysis. This video series is where I analyze the teams that participated in this season of the Victory Road Draft League, and it is done through an interview format, either by DM or by interview via voice call. In this case, I am taking a look at the team Florida Flesh Ribbons, led by LionHugs, and this is indeed going to be a voice call. So thank you, Florida Flesh Ribbons team coach LionHugs, for joining me on this one.
Hi.
And we're going to start with the team name and the logo. The team name being referenced by more than one person for being pretty cursed, so explain what the background behind that is and your logo as well.
Well, I don't think it's any kind of secret that Sylveon's pretty much one of my favorite Pokemon. I mean, granted, on the server I talk more about Wooper, and because that is my actual number one, but Sylveon's number two basically. And then on top of that, I forget where I first came across it. I don't know if it was a meme or a comic or whatever, but somebody described Sylveon's ribbons as flesh ribbons because technically it can manipulate them kind of like limbs essentially.
Yeah.
So I know that is kind of cursed for some people. I just think it's cute just because it's oh, this is technically the first 8-limbed Sylveon, so in a way it's kind of spider-esque but not really. Also, it's really adorable, and quite obviously it's kind of trans-colored, trans pride colored, so that's why I have the background as a trans pride flag. And then obviously I'm also really into Star Wars, so I found the perfect art basically for me. It's one of my favorite Pokemon with 4 lightsabers and each of the ribbons being used to manipulate it, so I was really glad I was able to find something that was so perfectly on brand. I don't remember where I found that image, but yeah, it's really cute. And then obviously, in case for the people who didn't know, I put the description there from the Sun and Moon Pokédex or whatever, basically to try to sell the point in case you didn't understand what the Flesh Ribbons were doing. And then obviously for the Florida theme, I just put just some vague Florida memes in the background. I don't think it's too balanced, but I thought I was going for more the meme quality than oh, this is perfectly graphically designed or whatever. So I don't know if this is how it is in the rest of the United States. In Florida, obviously we do have, in most grocery stores, we just have entire aisle dedicated to orange juice essentially.
Yeah.
And almost all of it's just Tropicana basically, or just variants.
It's not like that in the rest of the United States.
Yeah. I just remember when I was talking to my friend, Gabriel in Romania or whatever, he was what the fuck is this? Oops, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. But what is this? Is this actually true? And I explained to him yeah, it's just how it is in Florida. It's not even just Publix, it's pretty much every store. And then obviously I had on the left hand side of the screen for the logo, just had a little meanwhile in Florida memes, just because I kind of forget how we don't see it as much in the area that I'm living in, but in general in Florida, gators just kind of hang out. So I just put a T-posing for alligator, just to kind of tie into the whole Florida by Pokemon theme.
Well, it's definitely a memorable logo and name, I'll give you that. But I do understand the Florida memes, being a Floridian myself, so so on that note, we're going to jump into the team. Is the team as cursed as the team name? Find out. Clickbait. So first, this is your initial team that I'm looking at here on the screen, and tell me what your motivation was behind drafting this team, and why you chose what you chose. You did have some repeat Pokemon, such as Sylveon, Metagross. I think that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. So my thought process was basically to kind of bring some of the Pokemon I did use from the previous league if I could. Previous season. Sylveon and Metagross, I really enjoyed using them last league, so I figured, you know what, I know how these Pokemon work, I know what you can do with them, what you can't, so I felt really comfortable trying to get some of those faves, but I also didn't want to be too predictable and be like, oh, well, if I get the exact same team that I did last season, then people can just look back at the replays and then basically figure out like what my general strategies are going to be and try to like one-up me based off of that. So I tried to also incorporate your guide video actually from like the beginning of the season, where it kind of explain like, oh, this is like the general way you want to plan your team, like think about archetypes and think about this. So I tried to incorporate that into my overall team building here. So like for example, where am I going? So this is actually Pokemon I don't want to spoil anything, but like for Craggle, for example, like by that point in like the drafting process, I really needed like somebody to be like a rapid spinner, or like a defogger or something. And like while Archeops already had defog, I figured, oh, I just need somebody with like rapid spin just in case I can't bring in Archeops into the battle for whatever reason. So that's how I ended up with like Craggle, for example. But not every single every single Pokemon fits into that kind of like, oh, I need to completely match up to like my Wall Breaker and my Tank and my Hyper Offense and whatever. I was just kind of like, let me just... Like, it was kind of like a fusion, basically, of like last league strategy of like, well, let me use my favorite Pokemon, and then this league strategy, which is like, okay, let me use Pokemon that fit certain archetypes. Like Beware, for example, like I guess technically it kind of fits in that like... Not even technically, it fits in that like physically attacky kind of like role. But for me, it was just kind of like, you know, I never got to draft Beware last season, so I really wanted to bring Beware this season. And for Amoonguss, for example, that was actually a Pokemon I faced last league in the playoffs. And yeah, it was just a really hard Pokemon to get around. So, oh yeah, this was an archetype actually. So I actually wanted a Pokemon that could definitely harass and like have Regenerator. So Amoonguss fit in that role, but I also had a few other Pokemon in mind, but they were already drafted by that point in time anyway. So I wanted Amoonguss for that strategy in case I wanted to use it against other people, / to prevent other people from using it against me. So that was kind of like half the reason why I drafted Amoonguss, just to prevent others from using him. So yeah, that's like the broad strokes basically.
It also seems like in this league, a lot of people went hyper offensive, and you were one of the few people who didn't.
Yeah, I think it's also because like, while I did look after your archetype analysis kind of thing or whatever, I still tried to keep it balanced, like kind of like how I did like last league, and like in general, like you know this because like we played like kind of like matches like on and off like outside of the season as well, but like in general I like Pokemon that can like take hits, give them out at the same time too, especially recovery moves, so that'll also factor into like how the team evolves later on to the season. But yeah, I like recovery, I like status infliction and all that, so sometimes people like will label me as Saul, and like I think that does fit overall, but in general I tried not to be super like, let me have a team of glass cannons, for example. Not saying that that's not a good strategy, it clearly is, but it's not like a strategy that I still feel comfortable using.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, like a Pokemon like Sylveon, for example, last league she helped me so much whenever I would like basically make like a mistake or something, and even in this league too, like if I would make like a big mistake or whatever and like I almost lose a Pokemon, Sylveon was kind of like the band-aid or whatever, like just coming in like at the last minute, just being like, okay, let me fix this real quick, and now the battle can continue. So yeah, I know that doesn't really mesh for some people who like kind of like really fast-paced battles, but for me it's like it gives me the chance to like understand my opponent's strategies and then like hopefully counteract them if I didn't already anticipate it.
Well, overall, it looked like a pretty nice team. Like, I like this team. I definitely would use a team similar to this one. It's pretty balanced, and it has the options of going in an offensive direction if it wants to, or a defense direction if it wants to. So, definitely an interesting team. And we're going to take a look at your battle record now.
Alright.
So, overall, you got rank 9 with a 5-5 win-loss. And How did you think you did overall in the season?
I think overall I did pretty decently. I mean, obviously considering that I did rank like 9, like that's not like anything to really sneeze at. But also like, I just want to say just in general for this league, like for all the returning players, like pretty much everybody stepped up their game, and all the new people, like I don't know if it's just because of the fact like that they're new or like and then I'm not familiar with them, but just everybody like like felt pretty like hard to fight off, like more or less. I mean, obviously you're gonna see some scores over there like +6, +5 or whatever, but like a lot of the time that was like, I don't know, just like the right conditions happened for me to basically get those. And other times you're just kind of like, oh my god, what am I doing? What's going on? What's going on? Which would kind of explain some of the bigger losses like that are on that screen, but I don't want to give spoilers until we get there.
Yeah, true. Which team, if any, were you most excited to fight, and which team were you most scared to fight?
I feel like that's still gonna be pretty much the same answer for both of them. So that would be pretty much everybody from like last season. Partly. Wait, you want specifics though? So I guess like the people who would excite me and fear me or scare me the most would have been actually you and Noob Scrub, just because like you guys were like really strong players last league. Noob Scrub especially like seems to go more in depth than last league, if I recall.
Yeah.
In terms of like team building and analysis and planning, and like, we could talk about that a little bit later or whatever. And then obviously you, where like you have this kind of like I don't know if it's, I guess like uncanny would be the word, just like this really good ability to kind of like just look at a person's like overall matchup and like not only guess how the Pokemon are most likely to be used, but also most likely to be used by that person, and then what their overall strategies are going to be, and thus you kind of find like what those blind spots are. And with like Noob Scrub, I feel like, I don't know if he can do it so naturally, I guess, like with that overall kind of approach, but like with the research that he does, it might as well be like the same thing in terms of like just how in depth he goes. Like, okay, what are all the good moves that can happen? What are this? What is that? What are the different strategies? What are the different tactics? Who do I gotta watch out for, etc. Like I feel like you can do that intuitively, which kind of makes you scary, because then you don't have to go through like all like the painstaking details that like something like Noob Scrub or maybe myself, if I may be so bold to put me in the same category, try to do in terms of like learning all those details and then reacting accordingly. So yeah, that's why I was excited to fight both of you, and also terrified to fight both of you, just because like I knew it would be a really tough match.
You were gonna say something about the teams from last season in general, like you were excited to face them.
Oh yeah, sorry. So like for example, I would actually be like my first opponent, for example. Sorry, I'm only seeing Waterfront Woods right now. I forgot the coach's name or whatever. But like, yeah, so Roland, Edgar. We had, I can't remember everybody's coach's name, but like there was like quite a few teams that I've like fought against. I was just kind of like, oh, like how did you improve and how did you change from like last league? And then that overall kind of just like excited me to see that, and like just like in general, like I realized like as like the league progressed or whatever, it's like most people just seem to have gotten like harder. Like I didn't get any like, I mean I got like maybe like one sweep or whatever, but like overall like it wasn't quite as like, how do I say it, like I couldn't just rely on like superior spamming Leaf Storm, for example, and just getting more powerful. Like like I had to put like a little bit more, I guess, thought and like effort, and it like despite the scores like that you might see or whatever, like the big wins or the big losses, like I don't think there was anybody that was like, oh I got this, or oh like I'm gonna lose, period. Like, so yeah, does that answer your question? Sorry, I kind of
yeah. So overall, I think you did pretty well. Having a +4 differential, especially when you have a 5-5, shows that you won pretty nicely quite a bit, and you lost really close. So yeah, you were also a contender for playoffs as well, and had to fight a tiebreaker match. We'll also be looking into that one. It's not in the battle record, but so really you rank 9, but like you were tied for 8 before the tiebreaker match. So we're gonna look at the individual matches now, and the first one we're gonna go into is your match versus Sir Roland and the Waterfront Woods. And what did you think about this match?
So, I mean, this was like obviously like the first match of the season, so I wasn't really sure exactly what to expect. Just kind of like hoping, like, oh, like I hope it's like a fun match. I hope I don't like get like curb stomped or whatever, but I hope I don't like was it like reveal too much of like my hand of like, oh, what are the strategies that are going to carry me on forward. So this is also like, obviously it's like a debut match for pretty much all these Pokemon, Sylveon and Metagross, but like for me I really felt like it was like a big debut for Blacephalon and Archeops, who like, I mean obviously like if you look at the chart, like it's like a 2-2-2 kill ratio for those 3 Pokemon, but like with Archeops, like he was kind of like new for me to use, and Blacephalon just because like those Pokemon I've just never used before, like not even like in previous games or anything, like so I had no real idea of what they could do in battle. I just, you know, looked them up theoretically based off of the stats. So yeah, like I did win obviously, but I was also kind of like, how do I say it, like I wasn't nervous, but I wasn't like cocky either, or try not to be confident, just because like I didn't know like what to expect. And especially when looking at Sir Roland's team, like I noticed that there seemed to be a little more like, how do I say it, like I felt like I was fighting like another balanced team basically. So I'm like, I don't know, like I wasn't sure exactly like which Pokemon was gonna fit what role. And while I did eventually get rid of Victini, I remember Victini was kind of like a big scary Pokemon just because of like the V-Create moves, for example. So like yeah, that Pokemon specifically intimidated me, but overall like with Sir Roland's team it was kind of like hard to be like, okay, well this is my sweeper, so you're gonna get rid of all of them, kind of a thing.
I think one thing you did really well in this match was using Rain. Even though Kingdra didn't get a chance to sweep, the Rain really hampered Victini's V-Creates. And also using Archeops to punch holes in really valuable Pokemon. I think those 2 things were really like the biggest things for you.
Yeah, I would say so. And then going back to that theme of like Sylveon kind of being that like mistake remover kind of person, it wasn't like, when I used Rain Dance the first time around, it was literally to go ahead and set up Kingdra, and it just, I could never do it properly. I forget who was on the field still. I think it was probably Lapras at the time, but like just the threat of getting killed was a little bit much, especially like even with the Rain, like V-Crate still did heavy damage.
Yeah.
It was just like enough for me to be like, okay, I can recover from this and stuff. So like once I started noticing that pattern, I'm like, oh yeah, Rain lowers fire moves. That was intentional. But yeah, like once I realized that's what helped me survive. I think I used it at least twice in that match. But
yeah, you did.
But me learning from this match kind of helped me move forward in the future, when like I know I did start using Rain Dance a little bit more to like not just stop like weather-based teams, but also reduce damage from other people's fire attacks. So yeah.
Well, overall, I think this is a good match. Both of you put up a good first showing, for sure. And we're gonna go into the second match now. This is versus Morgana's team, Northern Necrozmas. And what was your game plan in this one?
So my game plan, which it was really hard to carry out just because of how we were like reading each other and going back and forth, but like my biggest thing was to try and get rid of basically Mega Garchomp and Gengar, just because like I noticed like out of everybody like on the team, like those were the ones that would give me the most problems. And Tyranitar to an extent, but those Pokemon just scared me in terms of like the sheer power that they had with their moves. And obviously Primarina with kind of like her tanky role, so I was trying to find a way to like isolate those Pokemon and like lure them out. But yeah, like I think obviously you can see from the scores it was a really close match. Like there was like this one move I think I did, or sorry, no, like with Archeops, like I think I didn't attack when I should have, and instead switched out, and because it did that, Gengar was able to sweep at the end, which was such a hype match to go from that. Like I literally had I had control of the match. I had like it was like I was winning by like 3-2 or 3-1 basically, and then whoop, Gengar just kind of like pulled through. So just goes to show you how strong that Pokemon is. And actually, Gengar was a Pokemon I was considering drafting, but I obviously decided to go with Blacephalon instead.
Yeah, Gengar did really well in this battle, especially after things were weakened. I think that Piloswine was useful for you, for sure. And Mantine was useful for Morgana. It doesn't show in the differential, but Mantine was able to wall quite a bit of your Pokemon. And also set up conditions for Gengar to go ahead and sweep. But it was a really, really close match and really interesting one for sure.
No, definitely. It was a really enjoyable match too. Like, it's been so long ago, but like I still like watching the replay recently. I was like, man, like that was such a close match. And also I forget if it was this match or the first one, but one of them, like the chat like noticed like all my Star Wars based nicknames, and we just started trading memes back and forth. I forget if it was this one or with Sir Roland, but I just wanted to mention that I really appreciated it. I think it was with Quasimodo and somebody else. Anyway,
I think Quasi and Noob Scrub maybe.
Yeah,
and Morgana as well. I don't know. There's a lot of and Ember. I think there's like a lot of Star Wars fans in the chat. So, but yeah. So this was a good battle, and we move on to your match versus Drizzle Boys team, Harlem Gloomtrotters, and this one was kind of similar to the last one, in which you had control in the beginning and it was a close one, but then a sweep happened at the end. So what was your plan in this one?
Let's see. So I think for me, I kind of over-focused on like trying to get rid of Ferrothorn, just because like I know Ferrothorn in general is like a big threat. And on top of that, while I know I prepared for Slurpuff, for whatever reason I just like discounted it because I'm like, oh well, Metagross can just take it out. And once Metagross, I forget if Metagross died before Slurpuff started sweeping, but like, or after, but either way, like, but once I lost Metagross, I think that was pretty much it. And yeah, like I think this was like the kind of like one of the prime examples of like why I try to go super in-depth with team planning, just because like there are times where I just forget like what Pokemon can do or what typing they have or just how much damage they actually can do. So yeah, like that was like a bit of hubris on my part, but it was still like you said, it was a really good and close match too. Like again, just a loss of like -2, like, and pretty much every Pokemon on my team, other than Mega Sableye and Shaman, was able to like at least take down one Pokemon. So I don't know, I like that like evenness of it, I guess.
Flareon also punched some holes after being boosted by Mega Sableye's Will-O-Wisp. But this was Slurpuff's really like time to shine. It was the first time that Slurpuff, I think, went ham like that. I don't think it had done an Unburdened Belly Drum in the first and second match, so yeah. But it was a close one, pretty good battle, and we'll move on to the next battle now. Well, first we're gonna take a look at this exchange, Cryogonal for Pyukumuku. Why did you make this exchange?
Okay, so I made this exchange because I believe it was actually Drizzle Boy, if not someone else, but somebody came to me and asked, like, hey, like, I would really like Triagonal because you seem not to use it too much.
It was Drizzle Boy, yeah.
Yeah, okay, it was Drizzle Boy, and like you seem not to use it too much, and I really need a rapid spinner and all that kind of stuff. And then that's when I started thinking about like, well, Triagonal I didn't use for 3 whole weeks straight, and I was looking at like my overall team matchup, and I realized like most of the time where I would want to bring an ice Pokemon, it would basically I just want an ice move on like Kingdra. Or better yet, Piloswine, obviously with Ice School Crash. So I was like, most of the time, like I felt like Drizzle had a point. Like I didn't really use him too much, and I forget who I was speaking to, but I spoke to somebody where it was like, oh yeah, so I made like Triagonal my Rapid Spinner, and then somebody pointed out like, wait a minute, isn't Triagonal weak to Stealth Rock because of the ice typing? And I'm like, oh right. So it's like, it was kind of like the Dragonite problem I had last season, where like, yeah, that's my Defogger, but my Defogger is weak to Stealth Rock and everything. So that's when I started thinking like, maybe I should just start using Mega Sableye a little bit more often as like a Magic Bounce to set these hazards back. And then worst case scenario, I do have Archeops, for example, to defog if I really need it, if Stealth Rock was really getting in my way. Obviously, you don't really want to use Archeops in that role. You want him to be like a puncher kind of a thing. But then looking at Pukumuku specifically, so sorry, I just explained why I gave up Cryogonal, but the reason why I got Pukumuku was just, well, one, obviously look at him, he's adorable, but two, I was kind of in those first 3 weeks, I was like, or especially that last match, I was like really missing Quagsire with that Unaware and Recover and all that. I believe Noob Scrub got him. Yeah, Noob Scrub got him. And really happy that Quagsire found his way to a good home. But I really wanted some kind of like really big wall, basically, and Pukumuku pretty much fits that, in that Pukumuku can only wall.
Yeah.
So it felt like kind of gimmicky, but like it still fit like my overall style, I felt like, because in general I didn't really have like a general kind of like, oh, like this is my physical wall or this is my special wall. Like Metagross can kind of fill some of that for like the physical side, and Sylveon for the special side, but I liked Pukumuku could do both. And then I saw like the Soak toxic strategy to deal with like steel types, for example, or other types that would resist toxic, and I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. And I looked at every single move it had, and I saw it had block and other things. So I was like, you know what, I feel like even though Pukumuku was kind of gimmicky, I felt like he could carry me, like, well, not carry me, but like he could take me like a long way, basically, in future battles.
Yeah, that Unaware ability, especially after being swept by Slurpuff, it's such a good ability, and it's so limited in its distribution, so I definitely understand why you got Pukumuku. So your next battle is versus Edgar and the Moon Drinkers, and what was this battle like for you?
Oof. This was very, very tough. Also, another Pokemon that I did want to draft, but I just couldn't fit in my team in time, or it was planned before I could, that being Bisharp. So, I mean, just quick side note, like Gengar and Bisharp were Pokemon that I used in like the mainline games, like not when they came out, but in the games like that Bisharp debuted in.
Black and White.
Yeah, Black and White 2, or in Black and White, and then Gengar with Heart Golds. So those are Pokemon that I knew were heavy hitters, and I just really enjoyed. Like I comfortably knew how to use them. So when it came to this match, I knew I had to fight Bisharp, and it was really tough to get that first move in to like stop him. So yeah, Edgar's team was just, I feel like this you can comfortably kind of just say it was kind of like hyper offense. Like it was just really hard to really like punch through, and pretty much everybody was a heavy hitter. Like you couldn't really like sneeze at anybody. Obviously we have Bisharp with Houndoom and Garchomp and Braviary. It was just kind of like, man, I just need to survive and like try to take as many as I can down with me. it's not like I expected to lose, but I just knew that this was going to be a very tough battle, and it would really depend on absorbing hits or just taking people out first. I forget who was choiced with, like, I think somebody had choice scarf. I don't know if it was Archeops or Blacephalon, but somebody did. I know I included that to make sure I would just try to, like, get in first, and hopefully stop Edgar from, like, sweeping.
Yeah, when I saw Bisharp, I was like, oh yeah, this is a tough matchup. I think in that last moment, you could have won it, but you stayed in with Mega Sableye and it was able to Swords Dance up.
Right.
And Mega Sableye wasn't really able to do much to it. It was really close though, because it was almost down. I think Beware was a really good Pokemon for you to bring because it was pretty good in this matchup, but the Z move from Garchomp was actually pretty unexpected. And took it down before it could do anything. But it was still a pretty close match. It was enjoyable to watch.
Agreed, and I forget if this is the match where... No, I think it was like the first match where I debuted Archeops of the Papa Berry.
No, you had that in Battle 1 versus Sir Roland.
Okay, so then this one might have been the Scarf one or whatever. I forget, but... Yeah, just that is a good strategy in my opinion, but I forget exactly how Archeops took down two Pokemon this match, but still.
Archeops doing Archeops things.
Smash.
So we go on to the next battle, which is versus I Like Corsola, which this PowerPoint slide conveniently misspelled. This battle is pretty infamous. I remember I was commentating with Morgana, and it was very lengthy, and then at the end it went from, like, you don't see it from the differential, but this battle lasted how long? Like 100 turns? I don't know.
Oh my god, yeah. I honestly, like, it lasted so long, and I forgot exactly, like, just how it, like, went through, just because, I mean... Yeah, I forget, like, how I was getting stuck on this match or whatever. I do apologize, I think I skipped over rewatching this one. But I know I eventually was able to set up Kingdra and then sweep, obviously, afterwards, but... Who was giving me trouble? I think it was Licky Licky. I'm sorry, I'm blanking a little bit on this one.
So Sylveon and Licky Licky were both wishing, and nothing was able to break past each other. I think that Kingdra had its specs knocked off. I forget. But yeah.
I think so. I think that's why I was also, like, reluctant to unleash Kingdra earlier, just because I'm like, oh, well, without the choice specs, can I really sweep?
Yeah, so... it was, quite the battle. You both were just playing it really, really safe. And then... Licky Licky had been wishing things, but I think it forgot... Z-Quigs forgot Heal Bell on it, so it couldn't heal any burn or toxics. And eventually the team was weakened, and he didn't let anything die, but they were still weakened, so then once Kingdra finally found its opening, it was able to just sweep everything.
There we go, yeah, so... Yeah, I think I brought Mega Sableye specifically to at least Toxic Licky Licky, hoping that would work. But yeah, okay, I'm remembering this match a little bit more now. I know it's hell when you're a commentator and you have to try to, like, keep the hype up and, like, analyze what's going on and, like, try to figure out, like, who's gonna do what next or whatever. So I know it's really tough, like, to commentate stall matches for that reason, but, like, me being kind of, like, more defensive as a player, and obviously my opponent as well, like, it was actually, this was exciting in a different way than the previous matches. And for me, I enjoyed it, but obviously, you know, it must be very tough when you're watching it live.
Well, I had Morgana to commentate with me, so that wasn't so bad. We got to suffer together, and Kingfuse probably enjoyed 2 times the suffering.
Right, I also forget which track it was, but I also noticed that, like, at least with last season, there was just kind of, like,
Manor.
Kamiko's Manor. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So yeah, I noticed like before, like in last league and a little bit this league too, whenever I chose like a very whimsical track, for whatever reason that would be a very long match, like plus 50 turns, plus 60, plus 90, or in this case 100 almost. So yeah, my apologies. I know that can be kind of grating for, especially for the commentator, but I mean, I like Kamiko's Manor, so.
Yeah, it's a good theme. I didn't expect it to last so long, but it's like it's funny looking back on it. So, so yeah, this was an interesting battle for sure. The next battle is versus Colin's team, Blitz City Haxorus, and in this one, Amoongus actually did pretty well. What was your plan in this one?
Kind of like from last league, I had some experience getting destroyed by Megalopony, so I was like, okay, that is like priority target number 1. And I don't think I necessarily planned my entire team around like taking down Megalopony, but like still, like that was just kind of like, if I take out Megalopony, I have a chance on everybody else, just because like she's just a very big heavy hitter. So that is why I kind of tried to bring, this is the reason so because Megalopony was such a big threat, that is precisely why I brought Amoongus. Like, before going into this league, I kind of joked with you and a few others that like the main reason why I'm taking Amoongus is just so that way Quest couldn't use it against me or anybody else. But also, so for the same reason, I was like, okay, so and that means I'm probably not going to use Amoongus, like period. But then when I did like the team building for this team, I realized, you know, like Amoongus can help out a lot. Like instead of like, for example, Sylvan obviously as my cleric and a Wishmaster really helps a lot too. But a Pokemon that can just heal by switching out, like Regenerator, is such a good ability. And I felt like overall, like that as long as I didn't, as long as I was careful for Amoongus, like that he could kind of like take a few hits for somebody else before sending somebody else out, like Beware or Piloswine, for example, or Metagross or Kingdra. So like, even though like I meant to bring Amoongus as more of like a support harasser, but like I was kind of surprised that he was able to take down so many Pokemon like single-handedly.
I think Poison was a pretty good type to have versus like Tapu Koko, for example. And Amoongus definitely unexpected due to the electric terrain, but I think you didn't run Spore, so you were able to be a little bit more offensive with Amoongus. Scrafty did give you trouble in this matchup because it was able to Drain Punch and use Shed Skin, but at the end, Shed Skin only has a 1 in 3 chance of working. So because of that, Colin didn't get lucky every single time, and eventually it was able to go down. But it was a really hype match. It was a really interesting one.
No, yeah, it was really fun, and it was also really interesting that like there were certain moves like I knew about, but I just didn't really anticipate, like Scrafty using Throat Chop.
Yeah.
So that was actually a really good idea from Colin's, like that was a really good idea and tactic that Colin had. The issue was that I never, when planning around his team, even though I knew Sylveon could take out Scrafty, I never really thought of, oh, let me use Sylveon to take out Scrafty. For whatever reason, I was thinking more of Beware or Metagross with like, or literally anybody else, just because like for this match I was like, I just need to use Sylveon in that cleric role to survive Lopunny. Once I take that out, then I can worry about Coco and Scrafty and everybody else.
Yeah, that was a really hype move. I think you tried to use Hyper Voice and it didn't work after that. Really.
Oh yeah, like
really
once I saw that he had Throat Chop, I'm like, okay, well, there's no point using this fairy move anymore, so let me just find other ways around it. So it still ended up working, like, or rather, I still ended up adapting, but it was still a really good tactic just to shut that down completely.
Yeah. So that was a really interesting match.
Mm-hmm.
So the next exchange, you ended up removing Blacephalon, and you got Volcarona actually from me. So why did you make this exchange, aside from me being like, please?
Well, I will say, okay, so pretty much anytime I ever make an exchange, like 99% of the time it's gonna be because somebody asked me to, and like that gives me the opportunity to stop and think like, okay, so if I accept this, who could I actually take into my team? Who could I change? Like, what do I really need? Like with Pyukumuku, so up until this point, like my last exchange, I don't think I really used Pyukumuku yet, but I knew Pyukumuku was kind of like that, like hidden player. Like eventually I'll bring out Pyukumuku and like really do some damage. So when you were asking me for the exchange, I think you mentioned like 2 or 3 Pokemon like to potentially give up, or yeah, it was. Yeah, this trade really confused me because it wasn't like Pokemon for Pokemon. It was literally like, oh, I give up a transaction to take your Pokemon and release my other Pokemon. So I know in the chat like the week after, people were like, what the hell was going on? Because like even I got kind of lost. But anyway, going to the Pokemon, I chose Volcarona primarily, like almost 100% because it had access to Roost. So for example, like Blacephalon, like I loved using Blacephalon. He was kind of like basically like a little bit of an upgrade to Chandelure, but even as an upgrade-ish, it still suffered the same problems. It's really frail, and if it ever gets outsped, that's it. Like you're done.
Yeah.
Whereas Volcarona had more of like a bulky overall, like good spread, basically. You could optimize it to be a little bit more like of a heavy hitter. You can optimize it to be a little bit more defensive and tanky. So me having that kind of like overall balanced theme, and also loving recovery moves, like that fits perfectly in with like my playstyle, or so I thought. So that plus the Quiver Dance. So like notice like I did have Shaman. I think I only used Shaman like 2 or 3 times at most. Up until this point, / just the league in general, just because like I like Shaman and Kingdra were kind of supposed to be meant to be kind of like my sweepers, and Blacephalon to an extent with Beast Boost, but for Shaman I just couldn't ever really set up the Z Celebrate, whereas Volcarona already has like a move that pretty much does exactly what Z Celebrate does. It's just Quiver Dance, and you can do it multiple times instead of just once. So all those factors together made me realize, like, okay, you know what? Like Volcarona fits perfectly, like on my team. It can replace, like, I'll lose the Ghost typing, but it replaces, or rather, it kind of checks some of the weaknesses that Blacephalon has in terms of frailty.
Yeah, I think honestly this was a good trade for you. You seemed a lot more comfortable with Volcarona than Blacephalon just because of the nature of how it was a little bulkier, and got recovery, so you were less scared to use it than Blacephalon. Like Blacephalon, I felt like you were pretty reluctant to use when you had it in battle. So yeah, I think this is a good trade for you. And we'll actually see, going into the next week versus the Visionary Tricksters, Volcarona ended up getting all the kills. So this was another scenario like the Z-Quigs battle where there was a whole lot of nothing going on, and then at the end it was just one Pokemon decided to go apeshit. So describe the funny situation that happened at first.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, with this Pokemon, I figured this would be like one of like the great. I think this is actually the first time I brought Pyukumuku, period. If I'm not mistaken,
yeah.
If not the second time. But I literally brought Pyukumuku. I'm like, okay, this is it. This is like the anti-Toxapex Pokemon. This is like the anti-Magnezone Pokemon. I can like soak you, I can trap you, I can toxic you, and I can leave like whenever I feel like it. I can recover. Like I thought I had like a really good tactic of Pyukumuku. And then I soaked the wrong Pokemon. I ended up soaking Palossand, and Palossand in the rain as a water type. Rip in peace me.
Not only did you soak it, but you couldn't toxic it because it was burned from Mega Sableye, and it had iron defense.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was just a major mess up, and I obviously also didn't. I swapped out Sylveon for Pyukumuku. So I didn't have Sylveon to kind of like help things out and like help me kind of like calm down and kind of reassess, like, oh, I can just recover from this, or I can just heal Bell, I can do this or whatever. And so yeah, that was just grueling. I tried to find so many different ways to try to get around it, just because I was scared to use Volcarona, and then I realized, like, wait a minute, like, we're literally just going around in circles. Palossand is just recovering, Iron Defense keeps working. Mega Sableye obviously can't do enough of Nightshade, and nobody else could really hit it that hard. Like, I didn't have any. I obviously did bring Shaman, but I had no real Shaman or Galvantula, so I had no real way to like super effectively hit a water type. Because again, Pyukumuku was supposed to get rid of the water types basically with Toxic. So yeah, that was really tough. And then I know you and other people in the chat were kind of suffering.
Yeah.
But I was also trying to think of like, okay, so how can I actually break this? And the only way I can break it is either with Kingdra sweeping somehow, which I tried earlier multiple times, I think, and kept failing. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I might as well just go ham with Volcarona. This is my new pick. Let me just go ahead and try and see what I can go ahead and do. Luckily, this was the variant that had Recover, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it had Recover. Roost. So I was able to go ahead and like, I just got like, kind of like fed up. I'm like, okay, let me just Quiver Dance as much as I think is possible that I need, and then just go. And luckily that really worked in my favor, because that's prevented, I believe it prevented even Cloyster from like properly setting up a Shell Smash.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Shell Smash, Pyukumuku, unaware. Like, I had, like, Pyukumuku was supposed to be the star player, and in fact it ended up being Volcarona. So, like, I am sorry, Pyukumuku, for letting all this happen. This is all on me, not you.
Yeah, I think in the end, King Fuse was just so satisfied with Palossand being at +6 defense, water type, that he didn't want to switch out when Volcarona was setting up on his face. So that I think was his downfall.
Mm-hmm.
And you were smart to use Volcarona, because once you set up with Volcarona, nothing really was able to take it down. So it was only a matter of time. Maybe Toxapex if it had Haze, but yeah. So
I think Toxapex did have Haze, but just never used it. Like, I think we talked about it in the chat. I don't remember actually.
Yeah, I think he tried to take you down with Scald and it didn't work because of the boosts from Quiver Dance.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this was another one of those infamous matches.
What was the music for this one? I forget.
I don't remember. It wasn't Kamiko's Manor. That's what's important. So we're gonna move on to the next one, which is actually versus me, Sun and Friendly. And in this battle, what was your game plan going into this one?
Oof. Okay. So my game plan was to basically try and just stop you from using your weather effects, because like I know you kind of rely on them, like Sun, especially. So I was like, okay, let me just keep Rain active, and let me try and go ahead and take out Venusaur and Arcanine, just because Venusaur and Arcanine can kind of like resist Volcarona's like fire moves. And obviously Excadrill, like I was hoping to set up like Quiver Dance first to try and like stop Excadrill from also wreaking havoc, just because that ground steel typing advantage is kind of hard to get around if it can't hit you first. So I think it was either for this match or, oh, I forgot to mention, it was either this match or last week's match where I spoke of Noob Scrub for a bit, or Noob Scrub and I were just talking in the chat. and he kind of like mentioned like he was kind of going in depth in terms of like how he plans his battles and everything, and then like he sent me like a sample of like one of his previous matches, and I was like, oh my god, that is intense. Like, I don't know if anybody else has just like seen New Script's notes, but it's just really like detailed and in depth. But what I also realized, it's like, oh, this kind of helps me personally, because like for a lot of Pokemon, like especially the ones I'm not familiar with, which is basically Gen 6 onwards, more or less. So 6 and 7. Like, I don't know who's specially defensive, offensive, etc., etc. I know the stat spread, so seeing him do stat spreads and abilities and best moves and this and this and this and then general notes, I'm like, you know what, this is much better than the strategy, or sorry, the way I was planning earlier, which was like using Excel basically and being like, okay, so here's a person's team, and let me just focus on who can take it out in 1 or 2 hits. Like, that was like my main way of just practicing. I didn't really account for moves until like later, until like later on in the league. And then I had a separate column for moves, like, oh, watch out for knockoff, watch out for this, and it was just like very hectic and like not, like, it was organized, but like not for me.
Mm-hmm.
So adopting his notes, I felt like kind of helped me forward. I think especially in like last, no, not in last week. Not last week, but I know I planned for your team in that way. Unfortunately, unfortunately for me, fortunately for you, you had a strategy that I actually did write notes on, but I didn't really analyze for myself. It was like, oh, like watch out for. I think I just put a general like, oh, watch out for this ability because it could happen, but most likely it won't. And I was clearly wrong about that. So yeah, like, this was a very quick match if I remember correctly. I think it lasted maybe like 15 turns or something.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, I wasn't able. I forget exactly. I think was Arcanine boosted or something. I'm sorry. I'm kind of blanking on the details.
I came in on the Will-O-Wisp. I'm pretty sure I came in on the Will-O-Wisp.
Yeah, you are.
Or the knockoff. I agility'd and then knockoff raised my attack by 1, and then I was basically ready to sweep. And I swept. And then when Mega Sableye came in to try and wall it, I Morning Sun so I could continue Flare Blitzing. And I ended up taking down everything except Mega Sableye, actually, who was the last Pokemon to be taken down by Venusaur.
Yeah, that was really tough. Also, like, yeah, like that match, I still think the match probably would have gone the same way, but I didn't really get enough sleep the night before, and I was very tempted to just kind of like, oh, okay, let's just like postpone this to tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I'm awake now. Let me just go ahead and do it. And I feel like even me, like best case scenario, like, oh, like I'm fully like mentally prepared and physically prepared, I still think the match could have gone the same way, just the fact that I had Will-O-Wisp on Mega Sableye, like, I really shouldn't have done that.
It was more the knockoff. It wasn't the Will-O-Wisp. It was the knockoff.
Or knockoff. Yeah, you right, like,
because of Justified.
Because of Justified. Probably not like the best thing to have, especially if Arcanine, who I believe was your Z Pokemon, so like knockoff wouldn't have done anything anyway except help you.
Yeah.
But yeah, just really interesting match. I'm sure you got this from everybody, but I would love a rematch at some point. Just because I'm like, like, this is a good team, and I wonder, like, if that, like, I don't know, like, I wonder, like, if I don't know if you still have your same team from that week. I know I have mine in my own records, but like, I just wonder if I could have taken that team with that moveset, with that stuff or whatever. But I mean, it's different now because I know you have Justified.
The surprise is spoiled.
Still, yeah. Still though, it was really interesting.
Avoiding the knockoff at all costs. But yeah, that was an interesting battle. I didn't think my strategy would work, but if it worked, it really worked. If it didn't, it didn't, you know?
Yeah.
So, Alright, so the next battle is versus Rio Grande Rapidash. This is Ember's team. And how did this battle go?
So, just before I get into it, with Ember, like, before the match, we were, like, trying to talk a little, we were talking about something, I forgot how it came up or whatever, but we started talking about, like, Black Lives Matter, and then I was like, oh, like, we could just really quickly just kind of, like, to, like, use the match or whatever to kind of, like, post, like, links to petitions and donation things and stuff to, like, just help people who are kind of, like, going through the brunt of the protests and like the bailout funds, etc., etc., etc. So we were like, okay, like let's nickname some of our Pokemon based off of that. And it was also Pride Month at the time, so I think we had like 2 or 3 or 4 Pokemon between the two of us that were named Black Lives Matter or trans rights in some way, shape, or form. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I tried posting links in the chat for Pokemon Showdown, but it wouldn't go, so I just put it all in Discord channel, but that was like a month or 2 ago. But anyway, so yeah, for this one with Ember, I was like, I tried to keep like a balanced overall team, but I was really scared of Rapidash and Tornadus Therian, just because like I know those are pretty big hitters. So I was actually, this is a reoccurring theme like throughout the whole league, where like I try to find some way to set up Kingdra and it just doesn't work out exactly. But I was hoping to use like fast Kingdra to kind of just like stop Rapidash, stop Crocodile, and just go ham. But me also knowing that, oh, me trying to set up Kingdra doesn't usually work, let me also bring Volcarona to kind of help, kind of like, you know, if I can't use one, I can use the other. And also using, yeah, okay, so this is where one of the matches where like team scrub, noob scrubs team building method really helped me out, because that's when I also noticed that Metagross could do heavy damage to a lot of this team if used properly, and with Mega Sableye, I realized that like Dusclops, like it was also a really big tank kind of Pokemon. It's really hard to kind of really take down. But I noticed that like with Mega Sableye, I forgot what the other 3 moves were, but the last move I had was either going to be Nightshade or
Knockoff?
No, Nightshade or Seismic Toss actually.
Oh, okay.
Because there were 2 Pokemon that like I knew were going to give me a lot of trouble. And I forget, maybe it was Crocodile or another dark type or something, but I realized like, oh, if I bring Nightshade, I can't attack a certain Pokemon, but if I bring Seismic Toss, I can't attack a certain Pokemon. And yeah, if I didn't bring the Seismic Toss, I couldn't attack Dusclops.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, let me use Mega Sableye to try to scout out what moves Dusclops has. Or sorry, not scout out, but rather let me wait until the actual match and like see if I can use Nightshade comfortably or not. So Mega Sableye ended up being my counter for Dusclops, funnily enough. Where I think like my main counter to Dusclops was actually going to be Metagross somehow. I'm sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me, but yeah, like my main thing was just trying to take out like the more offensive glass cannons, I guess, like Tornadus, Therian, and Rapidash. Watch out for Crocodile, and then I don't know, just wear down Dusclops somehow.
Versus Dusclops, you use Knockoff, and once you knock off Dusclops, it's a lot less useful than it is.
Yeah, true. Okay, yeah, no, that's why I did bring Knockoff on Mega Sableye. Sorry, I can't remember all the specific moves I brought for every single match, but yeah, like I think it was between Knockoff and Nightshade that helped me out with like Dusclops.
And I think once Rapidash went down, you were kind of home free with Mega Sableye. It just kind of walled everything.
Yeah, I think this was like, so like a few weeks back, there was like when I tried to make Pyukumuku the stand-up Pokemon, it ended up being Volcarona. This time I felt like was like one of like the first or few times where I was able to really use Mega Sableye to good effect, like just as like the wall like harasser kind of type.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually really proud of that.
Yeah, it ended up working out in your favor, especially after Mega Sableye knocked off Arcanine last week.
Yeah. Nice to make up for all that.
So the final battle before the tiebreaker is versus Noob Scrub's team, Patch 3.0 Ivysaurs, and in this match, Blissey... well, a lot of the Pokemon minus Stoutland gave you trouble, but it was really Blissey, Turtonator, and Celesteela, I think.
Yeah, especially those three. Like, for this matchup, like, I honestly, like, I was trying to use that team building method, but, like... And I did, but... Like, every calc that I did, every, like, analysis, every time I focused on any Pokemon, it was like, man, like, this is gonna be a very tough match. Like, I couldn't really find, like, an easy way to... Oh, well, take out Blissey this way, or, oh, take out Celesteela that way. Like, I had, obviously, the general thoughts, like, oh yeah, use Volcarona for Celesteela, use Metagross for Blissey, but it was just... It was really hard to break through that core. And... Yeah, it was a really tough match. Like, I like... Going in, I think also by this point in time, like... There's like some other stuff going on, like personally, and I think I was just kind of worn down by that. Probably like applications to stuff or whatever. But anyway, like, so in general, when it came to like this match, like I just wanted to basically go in like, okay, let me just do my best. Like, I think this was like actually the one match where I'm like, okay, you know what, I might actually not win. Like with like going against you, for example, I was excited and scared, but I also felt like I had a chance, kind of a thing, you know. Going against New Scrub, I'm not saying it was hopeless, but like just that, like, man, like the best I could hope for is like a +1, or like, or rather, no, not a +1, but rather like if I can take down 2 Pokemon, I was gonna consider that an accomplishment, kind of a thing. So yeah, that was just really, really tough. And I mean, it also just goes to show you just how in-depth and how hard Noob Scrub prepared, like not just like with the draft, but also like with his strategy and tactics and everything. Man, like that core is terrifying, and like Celesteela of Leech Seed is just
yeah.
How do you get past that?
He's very tough. He has an answer defensively for like everything, so so that was
I feel like this was like really optimized, like defensive. Like, I don't even consider it necessarily stalling, but like there was just so many walls that like I just did not have any wall breakers, really. Like the closest I had would have been Volcarona and Kingdra, and they both require setup.
Yeah. Yeah, he, especially since everyone went hyper offense, he was able to snag a lot of good defensive Pokemon. So that was the final battle of the regular season, but we do have the tiebreaker, and this was versus Startoad's team, Detroit Dinos, to get into playoffs. And so how did this match go for you?
So this was like, I mean, obviously you can see the score. It was just a almost complete sweep. No, it was complete sweep. Sorry, +6 for the Detroit Dinos. But yeah, I think this is kind of like similar to that match where I accidentally soaked Palossand, and that just really helped my opponent. In this case, I had Rain Dance set up, and it just really helped out Araquanid. And what was it? Like, Araquanid was able to kind of, if I remember correctly, was able to whittle down most of my Pokemon, and then Salamence, and then eventually Heatran just came in and took out the rest. At least I think that's how it went.
Yeah, Araquanid weakened things, and then set up Sticky Web, and then Salamence swept.
Yeah, this was just, oof. That was just really tough. Yeah, because obviously the guy on my team, I didn't have anything to get rid of Rapid Spin. I didn't bring Defogger with I forget the name. Our Dinosaur Worlds, Archeops. and or Magic Bounce user with Scrabiota, so there was no way to really counteract the sticky web, and that was pretty much it. It was really good tactics though, but still.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. When Araquanid was benefiting from the rain, I was like, oh man, how is that thing gonna go down?
Yeah, same.
So this match ended up... You didn't make it into playoffs because of this match, but I still think you had a pretty decent season. And we're going to take a look at the Pokemon individually, and like what the Pokemon's totals were and stuff. So overall, your best Pokemon, differential-wise, was Volcarona, worst was Sylveon. It does look like you brought... is that Kingdra? Yeah, Kingdra the most.
Yeah.
And Piloswine and Metagross too came quite a bit. You did bring every single Pokemon except Cryogonal. So, which Pokemon was your favorite to use, and which was your least favorite?
So, my most favorite to use, I guess, would honestly kind of like be I know it's not really reflected in the scores or whatever, but like my favorites to use were actually Volcarona and Blacephalon, just because of the aesthetic. I just really like the crazy clown, like ghost alien thing it's got going on. That's why I did name it Florida Man, just because I mean it's kind of like the sick, mysterious entity of chaos. And once I got Volcarona, like that was pretty much like my favorite Pokemon to use, just because like, oh, Quiver Dance, oh, Roost, and then I can just sweep from there. Does this differential count your stats too, or just mine? Okay, interesting. Yeah, still really cool though, and I get also another runner-up is kind of, again, not reflected in the stats, but also Archeops, just because of like distributing head smashes was just really fun. And going on to least favorite, I think this is more just like the fact that I just didn't know how to use them properly. It's not Mega Sableye, which I did have problems using, but it was actually Shaman, just because like I never found a proper opportunity to like set up that Z-Celebrate, or when I think I did once or twice and it still didn't really like hit as hard as I would have liked it to.
I don't think you ever used Z-Celebrate.
I thought I did once. I thought I tried. Maybe it was like in a practice match then, I guess. I don't know. But either way, with Shaman, it was just like when it came to team building, it was never like, it never felt like really safe to bring. Because usually my opponents would have like a lot of counters, like fire, or poison, or bug, or flying, or something, to really take it out. And yeah, every time I did the calculations, even with like a Z-boosted Seed Flare, for example, it wouldn't really one-hit KO the types it's supposed to be super effective against, like water, rock, and other stuff. So yeah, it was just like I just felt bad because like Shaman's such a cutie, but I couldn't make it work on my team.
Yeah, it can be tough to use, especially as a grass type sweeper. It's not really a great sweeping type unless you have like another secondary stab or like a lot of coverage moves. And with Z-Celebrate, it has 4 move slot syndrome. So, were there any Pokemon that you felt like, oh, this is probably not going to be that good, and then ended up being really good?
Let me think. I guess the closest would actually be Beware, and I mean, even with the ratio it has over here, it doesn't seem like I didn't really use it too often. I only got like 1 kill and then 1 death or whatever, but like I really underestimated just like, even though when I drafted it, I knew it was a really big heavy hitter. And what was it? It's not head smash, but there's like a return. There's a normal move. There's return, and there's another move on top of that. Something with recoil damage.
Double edge.
Normal type. Double edge, like, or facade, or whatever. Those 3 moves, like, I knew, like, when I did the proper calculations, they could hit really, really hard. But I think the one time I actually used him to that effect, like, it actually still surprised me, like, oh, like, you hit hard. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, if I could do the league over again, I would have loved to have used Beware a little bit more often. It's just, with Beware, like, when I did like my team building for the first half, and even with the second half, I still focus so much on type advantage and resistances that I kind of forget to incorporate, oh, well, like, let me look at damage calculations too. Because I think Beware could have probably saved me in a few spots here or there if I used him better. Just because, I mean, if you look at my team, I think for the most part, like, there's like mostly specially offensive people, and then obviously you do have Archeops and Metagross and Piloswine that can hit physically, but yeah, just another physical type I think could have helped me more often, and Beware kind of already fits that, so I just, just wish I used him a little bit more.
Well, overall these totals are looking pretty good, especially for an even win rate. So I think overall your team was pretty fun to use, and it was enjoyable to watch, for sure. So
yeah, it was really fun.
So, any things that you learned in the league? Any takeaways you got?
Well, one for sure, with Mega Sableye, like, I still think I could use Mega Sableye or Pokemon that kind of fit that role a little bit better. I just don't know. I would need a lot more practice. But yeah, there's that. A lot of the returning players from last season have definitely improved a lot, in my opinion. Like, pretty much everybody. Like, everybody pretty much like felt tougher in one way or another.
Yeah, I agree.
And don't leave Mega Sableye out too much. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun. I would love to, if there's another future season coming up, I would love to participate. But yeah, just, it was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for joining. It was a pleasure to have you in this season 2, and I do look forward to any future leagues that you join. So we're going to conclude this team analysis video here, and thanks once again for joining not only the league but doing this team analysis video with me.
Of course.
And
it was really fun.
This concludes the team analysis videos of the non-playoff participants. So we're going to go into the playoff team analysis videos. There's still 8 more coming, so stay tuned for those. This is Noel from Sun and Friendly, joined by LionHugs from Florida Flesh Ribbons, and I'll see you then. Stay tuned.